Hello, it's Tim here from My Life Tonic. And if you have been following us either on social media or read any of our blogs, you'll have maybe come across some of the examples that I've shared with regards to well-being and the different country adaptations of how they have evolved their own unique ways of supporting and maintaining each other's well-being within those societies. So within this short podcast, and welcome to What's Your Tonic, just really want to share a couple of those case studies and examples with you. And as always, the key point here is to understand the different elements and commonalities that exist when people are looking to support their own well-being. And just before we start, also when I talk about well-being, really want to refer to the different elements that contribute to our well-being. So firstly, we have lifestyle and habits. We have being physically active. We have the ongoing sense of community. And then we also have ways in which we can support our own emotional and mental health. And maybe just during this podcast, and as I go through and visit various countries around the world, keep in mind what are those elements that might be relevant to you that you may feel that is already in existence within your regular routine. And also how, whatever it is that I'm referring to, how you can maybe adapt those to your routine. So rather than thinking that I can't do X, Y, or Z, maybe there's a way that that tweak can be made to be included into your daily routine, see if it can make a difference. And ultimately what I'd like to think is that over the next 15, 20 minutes, that there may be something that jogs your thought process in terms of maybe how you can adapt, include into your regular routine. And remember, My Life Tonic is all about sharing ways in which we can support, maintain, and then improve our well-being. And a lot of the life tonics that we like to share, either through our regular emails, through our blogs and our social media, are things that may just require a slight tweak in your daily routine, a dedication of a little bit of time and thought rather than any large expense. So hopefully we're suggesting and sharing concepts that may be relevant to you without a significant sort of outlay or reduction in the barriers of why you couldn't potentially make these changes to your regular routine. And so ultimately I'm going to have a whistle-stop tour across maybe 5 or 6 different countries, and some of them will resonate with you. So the first is a stop in Sweden and the concept of Fika. And for me, Fika really is about encouraging people to stop and to slow down, to connect and to be present with those around us. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of Fika, ultimately it's a regular time where members of a community, whether it's at work or in the village or the place of their where they live, is to stop, to chat, to have coffee, to have cake, and just connect with those around us. And it's really about getting out of that daily routine. So particularly in the work environment, actually spend time getting to know your colleagues. And from memory, when I was working in organisations, large and small, actually it's that connection with the colleagues around us that can help make us feel more connected, make us feel more dedicated to whatever those projects are that we have to deliver. If you have that emotional engagement, investment with your colleagues around, it does actually support and enable us to maybe go that extra yard to make sure that whatever it is that needs to be done can indeed be completed. So from a context of the Swedish Fika, for me, the focus, the priority is ultimately about making sure we're giving ourselves time to step away from our daily responsibilities and to connect with people on an individual, maybe a one-to-one or even a small group basis. Now, Hygge in Denmark is a reasonably well-known concept. It's about coziness and comfort and small luxuries that you can integrate into your daily routine. And you may be unsurprised to know that obviously both Hygge in Denmark and the Fika in Sweden, 2 countries that have long winters. So that sense of community, that connection with others can be particularly important in those winter months. But with the Danish Hygge, I believe it's very much about that coziness that we want, the warm fires, the candles that we can have, and the connection that we can have in those sort of winter periods. And it's about simplicity. So it's the candles, it's that shared time with each other, it's that warm food that almost helps us create a bit of a sanctuary through, particularly in Denmark, those long winter months. And so if you think about the benefits, whether it's an open fire in a pub, that coziness that we can have in the winter if you're based in the UK, is maybe a small tweak on that sense of Hygge that the Danish have sort of created. And you'll see that coming through with sort of the designs of Swedish and Danish, in this case, sort of homes and houses, the coziness, the warm blankets that can really make you want to hug down and feel comfortable, warm and safe. And just going back to my starting point in terms of what My Life Tonics are, just remember that we have the My Life Tonic Wellbeing Scorecard that can serve a way to just stop and take a snapshot of where you may be in terms of your wellbeing score. It will identify the 4 key areas that I outlined briefly, so the lifestyle and the habits, the emotional and mental health, whether you're physically active, and that sense of community. And then similarly, it can also provide you with suggestions and support, ways that you can maintain, improve your sense of well-being and having a more tangible way to track that with the score that the scorecard provides. But then just going back now to the whistle-stop tour of various countries around the world and how a sense of well-being has been cultivated within each of those communities. So my third example is Japan, the sense of Ikigai. And I love this, I came across it and I thought it was really important and useful to share with people. So within the construct of Ikigai, there's very much sort of a number of key principles that will help enable someone's sense of well-being. And so the first is do what you love. The second, it sounds pretty simple really, doesn't it? If you do what you love, you're going to be more engaged and feel more content with it. Do what you're good at. Do what people need. And then lastly, what people will pay for. And if you have fulfilled each of those criteria, that can help give you a sense of purpose and a sense of being within that community. And that can then also help you with a sense of joy in your daily routines. Now, there is obviously more to Ikigai than those 4 key principles, but they are ultimately the underlying areas. And by creating that sense of community, once you're doing what people need, what they'll pay for, doing what you love and doing what you're good of, you can have and establish that community and your place within that community as well. Just going to pop back to Finland and the Scandinavian or the Nordic regions within Europe. Again, if you've seen any of our posts about cold water and saunas and the benefits of that, I mean, originating from Finland was that sense of contrast therapy, the benefits of challenging yourself physically and mentally by going into the cold water or rolling around in the snow, and then having that sense of relaxation by going back into a sauna. Now, the physical benefits of that contrast therapy to help stimulate the circulation, to help stimulate your metabolic rate, to help clear the mind. There are lots and lots of benefits. But ultimately, they're the actions, they're the rewards of doing that activity. But as you are doing that activity, there's a real sense of community, whether you're getting into the cold water and you're sharing that tough shared experience, or then sitting in the sauna or steam room or whatever it is, that warm environment, and then having that sort of almost debrief of that shared experience, that sense of relaxation, the muscles, releasing those toxins, can create that point of dialogue, that place of shared experience that again can be great for creating that community, that sense of well-being. Now, obviously, not everyone has access to either cold tubs or saunas in their close proximity, but if you can safely go to a managed lake, for example, that has lifeguards and people watching, certainly if you don't have any underlying health issues, certainly give it a go, see what happens. Start off in the summer and then go through the season, see how far you can get in a it's not competition, it's not competitive in terms of how long you can stay in the water for, or how long into the winter, but maybe just see, if you're going with a friend, how that helps create that closer sense of connection with them, a shared experience, and can then give you a real high at the end of that experience, whether it's just cold water, whether it's the combined with a sauna. Having said that, if the idea of cold water and sauna is something that fills you with dread, that's also fine. Got a number of other different areas, such as the Ikigai, that purpose sense, the Fika in Sweden and the Hygge in Denmark, that there are different ways that we can support our well-being. And this is really ultimately the underlying essence of what My Life Tonic is trying to share with people. It's the multiple different ways that which we can support, maintain and improve our ongoing well-being. And what is right for you now may be right at this moment, or over the course of time it will and it can likely to change. So by offering a wide range of life tonics that at least you can then be aware of, it may be something you could come back to at a future time. So I came across a slightly different way of maintaining our well-being recently, and I loved the concept. It's the Dutch concept of Niksen. It is the art and the allowing yourself to do nothing, to stop, to take a moment, to step away from those responsibilities. And in my mind, that also includes getting away from necessarily podcasts or listening or trying to catch up with things. It's the art of even just sitting down outside or even at home, just being still. And I'm not necessarily talking about meditation, but you can sit down and take in the views around you, take in the trees, or listen to the sounds around you. Just notice the wind, for example. So in that respect, there's an element of the benefit of spending 20 minutes outside, or ecotherapy if you want to call it that. But giving yourself permission to stop and to let your mind wander, see where it takes you, without the potential guilt of feeling that you're potentially being lazy. You're not. You're just giving yourself a time to reset. And you might find by giving yourself that time to reset, you can indeed give yourself a different perspective in something that you've been thinking about, or something you're trying to handle or deal with. And don't feel guilty about having the, inverted commas, unproductive time. It may be that by giving yourself time to be unproductive, actually it gives you that perspective change that will help you resolve or look at something in a slightly different way. Kind of ties back to then my last country, which is the UK. Now, I don't think the UK have a clearly defined action such as the Swedish or the Danish or even the Finnish and the Dutch, but I almost think that I gave you a brief analogy of the fire in a country pub and sitting down and having that sense of warmth. I guess there is another one that is potentially a way that us Brits like to support each other, and it's that very simple concept of sitting down and having a cup of tea, sitting down and chatting, being engaged with that conversation, whether it's chatting and or listening to the person that you are with. And it has that sense of engagement, it has that sense of being present and being mindful, spending time with an individual, and potentially on a small group or a one-to-one basis. Now, I know the concept of having a cup of tea isn't quite as formalised as the Fika in Sweden, but I think that's possibly one of the closest ways that we do get to it, in terms of allowing ourselves to be present, to engage with someone and listen and or talk through whatever is going on in our daily routine. So as a brief summary of global tonics and how these global tonics can have multiple threads or commonalities through them, is that ultimately I think they're all about small rituals for us to partake in wherever you are in the world, and whichever one of these different concepts or structures appeals to you. It's about having a sense of purpose. It's being present at that time. And those two elements in themselves can foster a sense of connection, maintain, improve, and deepen relationships with those people around us. And in that respect, I would say that all of these different constructs of well-being that managed to find around the globe are interpretations and adaptations of life tonics. And they then pulling back to the concept of the My Life Tonic Wellbeing Scorecard is that they encourage regular, potentially healthier habits. They support our emotional and mental health. It can mean that we're actually being active with other people. And then also, importantly, engenders that sense of community and connection with those people around us. So I know this is a whistle-stop tour, and there are examples and more depth commentary on each of the countries and the concepts on our blog site. But hopefully you found this interesting, hope you found it useful. And I'll put a link into the comments below to each of those different blogs, but also the Wellbeing Scorecard. That it's free to do. It's 22 questions. It should take a couple of minutes, and hopefully find it helpful in terms of just giving yourself a bit of a benchmark where you are. We'll also hopefully give you a bit more of an understanding of what we can do in those 4 different areas that can help with our ongoing mental health. And not necessarily just mental health, but our overall well-being. And I think for me, it's also important that I remind myself that when we talk about our well-being, it's not something that is static. It's not something that just happens. We have to constantly be aware of it and maintain those habits that help support our ongoing well-being. And I think the challenge is, when we talk about well-being, is that we only really become focused on it when actually maybe there might be something that is out of kilter, out of balance, and we feel that we don't have a positive well-being. Over the course of these podcasts, What's Your Tonic, and then our emails and our blog posts and all the programs that we offer, hopefully that they give you some building blocks and also structure and frameworks to support you going forward. Because ultimately that's what our aim is, our mission is to support people with their ongoing well-being and finding what works for you at whatever life stage or whatever your interests are. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you found this interesting. Maybe it's been thought-provoking and it's given you a bit more clarity in terms of maybe small things, small changes that you can make. Don't hesitate to get in contact if you have any questions. And again, thanks and see you soon.